Welcome, parents, to episode 10 of the Parent Guide, helping your teen overcome pornography addiction. I'm Matt Bulkley, a psychotherapist specializing in helping teens and their families navigate the challenging journey of overcoming pornography addiction. If you're tuning in for the first time, thank you for being here. And if you're a returning listener, I'm so glad that you're back. Today, we're going to dive deep into how to get the most out of the Recovery Toolbox, which is a powerful set of resources designed to support teens and their families in building a sustainable path to recovery from pornography addiction. So it's not just about stopping the behavior. It's about disrupting addictive cycles, resetting the neural pathways in the brain, and equipping your teen with lifelong coping skills. And remember, recovery is a journey. It's not always a straight line. Relapses can happen, and that's okay. It's part of the process. What matters is consistent effort, open communication, and a commitment to ongoing and continuous intervention, whether that's parent-led intervention by you or outpatient therapy services or an intensive program like Star Guides. And early intervention is one of the most powerful steps that you can take. By addressing these issues now, you're not just helping your teen today, but you're setting them up for success a year from now, 5 years, 10 years down the road. So grab a notebook, settle in, and let's explore how to make the Recovery Toolbox work for you and your teen. Before we dive in, I do want to remind you, you're not alone in this. Talk to parents all over the country struggling with this issue, and I know that it is tough. But remember, it's worth it. So let's get started. So if you're new to the Recovery Toolbox or need a refresher, let me just paint the picture. The Recovery Toolbox is a set of 3 workbooks designed to work in unison to help your teen overcome pornography addiction while empowering parents to be active partners in the process. And these aren't just workbooks. They're a system grounded in research and real-world experience to guide your teen toward lasting recovery. So let me introduce the 3 different components. So number 1 is the Breaking Free for Teens 2025 revision. This is the original workbook. The Breaking Free was written 15 years ago in 2010. And I'm super stoked about the updated version, as it's been 15 years, and that is 15 years of more experience on my part, more knowledge, and more updated clinical research over the last 15 years. And the Breaking Free workbook is the heart of the toolbox. It's research-based, is packed with the latest strategies for disrupting addictive behaviors and fostering a sustainable recovery. And it's written specifically for teens with tools to help them reflect, grow, and take ownership of their journey. Second is the Breaking Free Parent Guide. And this is a brand new edition. It's designed to walk parents through the exact same concepts as their teen, but from a parent perspective. It equips parents with knowledge and skills to support their teen while growing alongside them. And then third and lastly is the 101 Tips for Quitting Porn workbook, Teen Edition. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is literally a collection of 101 practical, easy to implement strategies for helping teens resist urges and build healthier habits. Together, these workbooks create a user-friendly, comprehensive system that's effective, whether you're leading this effort at home with a parent-led intervention or working with a therapist in an outpatient therapy setting, or even participating in an intensive residential level program like Star Guides, where we use the same curriculum. In addition to parents, I've also worked with therapists, clergy, other professionals over the years to integrate these tools into their work. So if you're a professional listening or a clergy, a youth pastor, feel free to reach out to me if you want more info on how to begin using the Recovery Toolbox with your caseload, your youth group, your congregation, your agency, your private practice. Happy to consult and to help you add an additional tool to your practice. So the workbooks are built around 10 core treatment concepts, things that we have researched and discovered over the many years that we've worked with teens struggling with pornography addiction. And these are things like helping them to understand their triggers, building accountability into their week, helping them to develop healthy coping mechanisms rather than a reliance on pornography as a form of coping or escape. But here's the thing, what makes the recovery toolbox special? It's not necessarily the concepts, it's the specific tools within each workbook that bring those concepts to life. So think about it like just like a carpenter's toolbox. You've got hammers, saws, nails, but you need to know how to use them to build something strong. And in the next segment, I'd like to break down each workbook and share practical tips to maximize their impact. But first, let me just share a quick story. I worked with a family, call them the Johnsons. Their 15-year-old son was struggling with pornography addiction, and they had felt pretty overwhelmed about it. And they had started to use the recovery toolbox at home with a parent-led intervention. And over the space of about 6 months, they saw real progress. And it's not because the addiction completely disappeared overnight, but because they had started to use the tools consistently. It gave them a system and a structure to work on the issue together with their son. And in the process, their teen son learned to recognize his triggers. His parents learned how to begin open conversations with him without judgment. And together they built a stronger relationship, which in and of itself aided their son in beginning a recovery. And that's what these tools can do when they're used effectively. So let's dive into the first workbook, the Breaking Free for Teens, the cornerstone of the recovery toolbox. And as I alluded to earlier, this 2025 revision is a major improvement to the original edition that's now 15 years old. And there has been a lot that has happened in the last 15 years, including updated research in neuroscience in the field of addiction recovery. And certainly a lot has changed online in terms of social media, the dissemination of pornography and the genres of pornography. And I, as a clinician, have accumulated 15 more years of experience working with thousands more teens and their parents during this time. And so this workbook is designed specifically for teens and is packed with tools to guide them through recovery while fostering self-awareness and accountability. Here's a closer look at the key components that I think are so important to use and how to use them effectively. So starting with the pre-treatment questionnaires, right at the start of the workbook, both the teen and the parent complete a pre-treatment questionnaire. And this does include the YPAST, the Youth Pornography Addiction Screening Tool, which we covered last episode. And these questionnaires help establish a baseline, giving you a clear picture of your teen struggles, triggers, and mindsets before diving into the 10 treatment concepts. For example, with the YPAST, it may reveal how often your teen is exposed to triggers or how strong their urges are. And remember, this isn't about judgment. It's about that baseline. It's about understanding where you are starting. Secondly, I want to identify the reflection questions, which each of the 10 concepts in the workbook ends with a set of questions at the conclusion of the materials. And it includes 5 multiple choice questions, 2 fill-in-the-blank questions, and 5 short answer questions. And these aren't just homework. They are designed to spark insight and emotional growth. For instance, one of the questions asks, what's one trigger that you noticed this week and how did you respond? And the magic happens when the teen shares their answers with someone else, whether that be a parent in a parent-led intervention, therapist in a more professional treatment setting, a clergy member, or even in a recovery group setting. So rather than just answering the questions to themselves in their workbook, talking through these responses out loud builds emotional awareness and accountability. And I can't stress this enough. If your teen writes the answers but doesn't share them verbally, you're missing the heart of the process. So let me give you an example of this. Working with a teen I'll call Alex, I was reluctant to share his answers verbally at first. His parents encouraged him to read one reflection question out loud during a parent-led intervention meeting. And that small step opened the door to deeper conversations. And over time, Alex became more comfortable discussing his struggles. And that's the power of sharing. And do keep in mind, for many teens, this is probably the first time in their life that they have had ongoing open dialogue about the issue of pornography, which can start off as is very uncomfortable, but it does become easier with time and practice. So third is what we refer to as the weekly relapse tracker. At the end of each of the 10 concepts, there's a daily tracker where teens mark their days as either green, meaning no urges or relapses, yellow, meaning urges but no relapse, and then red as a relapse, along with a short note explaining why. And this tool helps teens to stay mindful of their patterns and their triggers. For example, a teen might notice that yellow days often happen after stress at school, which can then lead to dialogue and conversation about stress management. And parents, you can use this tracker to check in with your teen weekly, not to lecture, but to listen and to support. So, as far as the relapse tracker goes, at the end of each concept, you'll find those. But at the end of the workbook, there's also multiple pages of additional daily, weekly, and monthly trackers, which can be used to help them as they continue their efforts to establish a recovery. Next would be the post-treatment questionnaires. So at the end of the workbook, after the teen has completed the workbook assignments, the 10 concepts, they retake the questionnaires and the YPAS, comparing pre and post-treatment scores, showing progress, as well as highlighting areas that might need more focus and ongoing support. So I've seen teens light up when they see just how much their scores improve from their pre-treatment to the post-treatment scores. And it's a tangible thing. It's a sign that they're moving forward. And that almost always happens when teens take treatment seriously and they work through the concepts. Those scores almost always are significantly improved. So just a pro tip here, don't let your teen work through this alone. The Breaking Free for Teens workbook is so much more effective when it's a collaborative process. So set aside time each week, if it's a parent-led intervention, to review their assignments, their relapse tracker, to discuss the questions. And it doesn't have to be super formal. If you need to keep it a little bit more informal, that's fine. Or in the context of those that are working in outpatient support with a therapist or in a recovery group setting, those are part of the weekly therapy. And so to make sure that they're looping those in as well, the sharing and the processing piece is where the real growth happens. And it's what sets the workbook apart from therapy without this structured, systematic approach to recovery. Well, let's talk about the Breaking Free Parent Guide, which is a game changer for parents. And I had wanted to create a parent guide for many years. I'd worked with so many parents over the last 15 years that could have desperately used a formal written guide to go along with the teen Breaking Free workbook. But at the time, I only had what I could share with them during family therapy sessions and in correspondence, but was finally able to get it put together over this past year, which I'm very excited about. And this workbook isn't just about helping your teen, it's about equipping you as a parent to be an active partner in their recovery while also growing as a parent. Too often, parents feel helpless or unsure how to support their teen without making things worse. And this guide gives you the tools to step into the process with confidence. And so, some things to look for in the parent guide. So, number one would be the pre-treatment questionnaire, similar to what is found in the teen version, only this is a much more in-depth questionnaire. This helps you as a parent to assess your own attitudes, biases, and knowledge about pornography addiction. For example, you might realize that you've been approaching conversations with shame or frustration, which can shut your teen down. The questionnaire sets the stage for your own personal growth as a parent. Second, the Parent Guide provides case scenarios. Each of the 10 concepts includes a relatable, real-world scenario that brings the material to life. For instance, one scenario describes a teen who hides their phone use to avoid the parental monitoring, and the guide walks you through how to address this with empathy and firmness helping you apply concepts to your own similar situations. Third are the reflection questions. These push you as a parent to think deeply about your role as a parent in the recovery process. One of the questions asks, how do you react when your teen discloses a relapse? And how might that impact their willingness to be honest? These questions aren't easy, but they are transformative. Fourth is the discussion prompts. So in each concept, there are prompts that provide practical ideas for starting meaningful conversations with your teen. For example, one of the prompts suggests asking, what's one thing that has made you feel proud of yourself this week? And these small questions can open the door to deeper connections over time. Next is the post-treatment questionnaire, and this is a measurement to help you evaluate your progress as a parent, similar to how it works in the teen workbook. As you've completed the 10 concepts, this helps you to reflect back to see how much you've learned and how your approach to supporting your teen has evolved with additional knowledge. And then finally, at the end of the parent guide is a section called the 50 tips for parents. At the end of the guide, you'll find 50 actionable ideas to maximize your role in your teen's recovery. And these range from setting healthy tech boundaries to modeling emotional regulation yourself. Let me share a quick story on that. I was working with a mom named Sarah who felt like she was failing her son because she simply did not know how to talk about his addiction without becoming upset. And the parent guide helped to give her a framework for how to approach conversations calmly and using the discussion prompts to build trust. And over time, as she implemented some of these ideas, her son did start to open up and their relationship grew stronger. So parents, the guide, it's not just about fixing a problem. It is about growing alongside your teen. It's about building a relationship where they feel safe, being honest, even when it's hard. So my advice, work through the guide at the same pace as your teen does their workbook. Read the case scenarios together if you can. It can spark powerful discussions. So next, let's talk about the 101 tips for quitting porn workbook. And this is also a brand new resource this year, 2025. And for years, I had begun collecting tips and strategies that I would offer to teens and parents in therapy sessions, but I had never formalized it into an actual tool other than having the teen or parent write down tips and ideas during sessions. I would have them open the back cover of the Breaking Free workbook, and I would have them start to create a list of tools and strategies. And so the 101 tips is a compilation of all of these years of the collection of ideas for tips and strategies. Think of it as a grab bag of strategies that teens can use to resist urges and to build healthier habits. And it really is a simple, actionable, and designed to keep teens engaged. Oh, here's probably the best way to make it work. I like to just simply assign the teen to pick 5 tips each week. So peruse the workbook, pick 5 tips each week, and it could range from things like implementing mindfulness exercises, deep breathing to manage urges, or various distraction strategies like going for a walk when temptation hits. And the thing is, the variety means that there really is something for every situation. And so each week when I have my teen come in for therapy, I have them review the 5 tips that they chose and how they have attempted to implement that tip into their management of temptation. So second, the 101 tips workbook also has a progress tracker. It includes a chart called the How I Applied the Tip tracker, where the teen jots down how they used each tip and what worked. For example, teen might write, I used tip number 23, listening to music to distract myself when the urge hit, and it helped me to stay focused. And as I already suggested, to share the experience, especially if it's a parent-led intervention, encourage your teen to share their experience with you, or if they're in outpatient therapy with the therapist or a recovery group, how they are putting efforts into implementing the strategies. And this accountability reinforces the strategies and helps teens to internalize what works for them. The 101 Tips workbook, it's like a Swiss Army knife. Teens can dip into it whenever they need a new tool. Recently, I worked with a teen who found a particular tip, journaling about emotions, particularly helpful. He implemented it, started writing about the triggers, and it became a game changer for recognizing his patterns. So parents, you can help by checking in weekly, asking which tip worked best for you this week. And it's a great way to stay connected without coming across as overbearing. And consistency is the key here. So encourage your teen to keep experimenting with new tips until they find what clicks. Not every one of the 101 tips is going to work for every teen, but it's about trial and error and finding that collection of tips that are effective. Well, let's take a little bit of time here. I want to answer a parent question, something that comes up fairly regularly, and it would be this: what do we do if we've completed all 10 concepts in the workbook and yet our teen is still experiencing relapses? And this really is such an important question because it really does get to the heart of what recovery looks like for teens. So first, let me reassure you, relapses are normal. It doesn't mean that we just accept that and conclude that a full recovery is not possible. But it's important to have realistic expectations to understand that recovery is rarely a straight line, and it's a mistake to overreact or assume that your teen is not trying. And you have to remember the goal, especially in early stage of recovery, it's not for perfection. It's progress. And one of the concepts in the recovery toolbox that we emphasize is the concept of analyze, not catastrophize. And this means focusing on what's working, like streaks of green days or improved white pass scores, rather than dwelling on the setbacks. So here are 3 practical steps to take if relapses persist, even if you have completed the workbooks and all 10 concepts. So number 1 would be to revisit the curriculum. So go back through the workbooks, rework the concepts, either from the start or focusing on specific concepts where your teen has struggled. A second pass through can help deepen understanding and reinforce skills. See, I've seen teens make breakthroughs on their second or third time through. Sometimes it takes maintenance rehearsal, meaning several sessions or implementation windows for a concept to take hold or to work its way into thinking patterns and behaviors. In a way, it's kind of like reading scripture, to where you may have read the same passages many, many times, but when you approach it sincerely, you glean new knowledge and learning from the same material. Second would be to stay in a recovery group. A weekly recovery groups provide ongoing support and a safe space to share challenges. Here's the thing, in our work, our recovery group at Therapy Associates, I have worked with teens who have stayed in group for a year or more, even having completed the concepts in 2 or 3 months. And it made a huge difference in maintaining accountability. And sometimes guys will stay in group even when they're doing well and they're not relapsing, but it's because of the ongoing accountability and support, where they have many, many months of no relapses, but they continue to participate for the support. And then third is to maintain the weekly check-ins, whether it's a parent, outpatient therapy, or with a clergy member. Regular accountability is a non-negotiable. Without it, sustaining recovery is incredibly difficult. These check-ins, they don't have to be heavy. It's just a quick, how's the relapse tracker looking this week? Can keep things on track. And with some, it's the color code status board. It's the nonverbal daily accountability that continues to be in place. Well, let me share a quick example on that. I worked with a family whose son, Jake, completed the workbooks, but still had occasional relapses. And instead of giving up, they revisited the Breaking Free for Teens workbook and they joined weekly recovery group. And over time, Jake's relapses became less frequent and he developed stronger coping skills. The key was patience and consistency. So if you're facing this situation, stay hopeful. Recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. and keep using the tools and celebrate the small wins along the way. And before we wrap up, I want to share some practical tools for implementing the recovery toolbox effectively at home or in a therapeutic setting. And these are lessons that I've learned from working with many teens and parents over the years. So number one, set a routine. Recovery thrives on consistency. So set a specific time each week to work through the workbooks together, maybe Sunday evenings after dinner. Make it a routine in their weekly schedule and stick to it. Consistency is the key. Second, to create a safe space. Your teen needs to feel safe being honest about their struggles. Avoid reacting with anger or disappointment if they disclose a relapse. Instead, thank them for their honesty and focus on problem solving together. If communication is difficult, consider using the color code status board to keep the communication open and ongoing. And listen to the previous episode on the color code status board where we covered this intervention and why it is so effective. Number three, celebrate progress. Use the relapse tracker and post-treatment questionnaires to highlight wins, no matter how small. Did your teen have more green days this week? Did the YPAS score improve? Celebrate those milestones. It builds momentum. Number four, get support for yourself. Parents, if you're not just supporting your teen, you're navigating your own emotions. And so consider joining a parent support group or working with your own therapist to process your feelings. The parent guide is a great start, but community helps as well. And number five, be patient. Again, remember, recovery takes time. Some teens make huge strides in a few months and others need years. So trust the process and most importantly, don't give up. Parents, these tools work best when everyone's committed, teens, parents, and professionals. If you're feeling stuck, don't hesitate to reach out for guidance. I'm here to help, whether it's through training, family sessions, or answering questions. So parents, to get the most out of the recovery toolbox, use all the tools, the questionnaires, the relapse trackers, reflection questions, and tips. Be patient, set realistic expectations, and don't overreact to setbacks. Stay consistent with weekly intervention and accountability, whether it's parent-led intervention with a therapist in an outpatient setting or in a program like Stargates. So if you're ready to dive in, you can find the Recovery Toolbox workbooks at the therapyassociates.net website in the bookstore. There's a link. One of the links on the top of the page is the bookstore. And remember, in the bookstore, it's the blue Recovery Toolbox. There's actually two Recovery Toolboxes. The brown one is the adult version. So you want the teen version, the blue one. And as professionals and clergy, I'm available if you are interested in integrating these tools into your practice, agency, caseload, youth group, congregation. Just reach out. Would love to help you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being there for your teen. They're worth every ounce of effort. The work that we are doing now will pay off in the years to come as we watch today's teens become tomorrow's men and women that become loving and caring husbands and wives and fathers and mothers, and they go on to build fulfilling and meaningful lives. I'll see you in the next episode, and until then, keep the faith and keep moving forward.